is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live.
Good morning and welcome to the Monday morning break with me, Marie. I'm delighted to have Eileen join us this morning, and she's going to talk to us about her upbringing and her experiences as she grew up.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Monday morning break. As I said, I'm joined by Eileen this morning, who's going to talk to us about her experiences. But in thinking about the show, so in preparing and thinking about it, I was thinking that, education is supposed to be an equaliser. It's supposed to give everyone a fair shot at success, regardless of where they come from or what they look like. But the reality is that it's a bit more complicated than that. Racism in our schools is still a big problem, and it affects everything from the way students are treated in the classroom to the opportunities they get or don't get outside of it. So how many stories have you heard about children from ethnic minority backgrounds being excluded from school more often or facing lower expectations from their teachers? According to some recent research, Black Caribbean students are nearly 3 times more likely to be permanently excluded from school compared to their white British peers. And it's not just discipline, there are disparities in academic performance too. In 2019, it was found that only 53.4% of Black students achieved a grade 4 or above in English and maths, and that was compared to 64.6% of white students. And it's about the curriculum itself. So for a lot of students, it feels like their histories and culture are sort of footnotes in the predominantly white narrative. There was a report by the Runnymede Trust, and it highlighted that the national curriculum often fails to adequately represent the contributions of Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities. And this leads to a lack of engagement and sense of exclusion amongst these students. And again, it's not just about the textbooks and exams, it's also about everyday experiences that shape how students see themselves and their place in the world. Imagine going through school feeling that you're always being judged or misunderstood because of your race. There was a survey by the National Education Union that revealed over 50% of teachers had witnessed a rise in racial bullying in their schools over the past 2 years. And that can leave scars. There is some work being done to make things better. So there's policy changes and diversity training, community initiatives and grassroots movements. People are fighting to create a more inclusive and fair education system. So, for instance, the Black Curriculum Campaign is working to address the lack of Black British history in schools by providing resources and training. But I just think it's really important to hear from people, and it's really important to hear from Eileen. So I've been lucky enough to hear Eileen speak before, and it was so powerful and so very moving, and I just knew I needed to get her on the show. So thank you, Eileen, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming in.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And hearing those statistics was really interesting. I don't think it's news, or it's not a surprise, sadly, but it was very interesting. And it feels like things haven't changed as much as we hope. And what I'm hoping to talk about is my own personal experience of school back in the 60s, long time ago. But sadly, so many things are very much the same these days, and that's so I'm hoping that I can sort of make people think about how things used to be, hear from somebody who's experienced it, and maybe realise that things need to change, and it just wouldn't be that difficult necessarily for changes to be made.
Absolutely, definitely. So if we start, so you were born in the UK, but you're a descendant of the Windrush generation. Both of your parents originally from the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. And you've also, as well as talking about your experiences of school, which is so important, but you've also worked with children and young people for most of your working life. So in children's homes, childminder, foster parent, portage worker, inclusion coordinator, and counsellor.
Absolutely. absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. It wasn't always my intention to be working with children. It's just the way it's worked out. I feel that was always sort of the way things were meant to be. That's the way I was always sort of part. Things worked out for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with that here.
Absolutely.
That it's not something that I intended either. I wanted to be a vet actually when I was younger. Yeah, very, very different.
Absolutely.
So can we start with, first of all, why? So why do you feel it's important to talk about this, and why now?
Gosh, the why, you've already said the why. The impact on young people, the impact on the ability to get work. It's discrimination. Discrimination of any kind is wrong. It's unfair. It damages lives. It changes your future. So it's always important to talk about it. So it's almost, I'd like to think it goes without saying why we need to talk about it. Why now? I guess an element of why not. Any time is the right time. But that said, I must admit, for me personally, the 2020 Black Lives Matter campaign, when that took off, it triggered a lot for me. It triggered my ability to talk about my own personal experiences. I was moved and surprised by the level of shock and outrage from friends, from colleagues, from strangers on social media. And there were predominantly white people under 40. And I was surprised by their surprise, but at the same time, because people like me who'd gone through this racism, sort of, well, these microaggressions all of my life, weren't talking about it. I'd actually stopped being the stereotypical angry black woman because it was damaging my own well-being, and I just stopped, which was wrong. And I was facing this racial gaslighting. I didn't know it was called racial gaslighting, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
These microaggressions. I was facing that and enjoying those for years. I like the description, enjoying paper cuts of racism in silence. I don't know where I read that, but it really impacted me. It's the idea of paper cuts. And also, I started thinking silence is consent. I can't be silent any longer. But it was, I think, the fact that there were so many people who hadn't experienced racism who were up in arms. And I was realizing that people don't know that we're still going through so much racism in the country. People thought that's in America.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen here. So I thought it's the right time to start talking. People were listening, people were responding. And I think it was important to start doing something. And it was also cathartic for me. It was useful for me to start talking and start feeling better about myself. I didn't realize that I didn't until I realized that I was living a lie almost. It's quite powerful. So that's why I thought, okay, I need to be doing something. And also, that was 2020, but since then, things have started changing. And that's something I've never seen before. In my lifetime, there's been different uprisings, and then it died down and things went back to exactly how they were. But suddenly I'm seeing people responding, families of all shapes, sizes and colours in ads on television without an explanation, which was wonderful. And people, young children, young black children, are seeing people who look like themselves in key roles on TV, and that was so important. And so I'm thinking, this time is going to be different. But already there's like a gradual diluting, for want of a better description, of what we're seeing. Instead of talking about race or specifically prejudice against black people, it's now more things like inequality generally, inclusion generally, unconscious bias more generally. But although, I mean, unconscious bias, if it means people are talking openly, I don't care if they call it unconscious bias or racism, it has the same impact, and it means people are talking. But yes, things are starting to be diluted. So I think it's important that we carry on and get the narrative going again.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think what's so powerful about what you talk about is, there's a few things in there about the things where you've said you stopped being the stereotype of an angry black woman because it was damaging your own welfare. And I can only from my point, I can only imagine that sort of having to battle things all the time. And that, what was the phrase, that racism by paper cuts?
Oh, paper cuts.
Yes,
the paper cuts of racism.
It's
just such an appropriate description.
Yeah,
because each one was cutting, but it cut you. But I think the sort of the attitudes, the racial gaslighting, the fact that you just didn't want to rock the boat because you were tired of having to do battle, meant that you just let it go.
Yeah.
But each one left its mark.
Absolutely.
So that's why that expression really, really resonates with me. And I've sort of, like, whenever I've done little workshops, I've always used that expression because I think it's a very accurate description of how it feels.
And it's extremely powerful, I think, to, in order to make people think. And like you said, I think there is a perception that things are better or it's not happening. Totally get what you're saying, and it's really interesting about the language we're using when we're talking about unconscious bias, but actually it's racism. And I think as well, that change that you've said, that sort of people are starting to see people who look like them. I think it was a big thing with The Little Mermaid, wasn't it? Yes, that was one. And little girls.
Yes, you still had people protesting though.
Yes, but you still have people protesting.
But it happened.
It happened. And like you said, for children and young people, and seeing people who look like them on screen, and like I think he said as well, without explanation. I think that's so important.
Absolutely.
So important. It's not we're doing this advert and we're going to have a black family, and we're doing this advert to show that. It's just the fact that they're just an advert with a family.
And when my grandson mentioned, he pointed out on television, That Looks Like Us, because there was an advert with a black family and a white family, and it was mixed. I think they were just sitting down to dinner. There was no explanation, and he pointed that out. He had no idea the impact that had.
Yes,
Warn you now, everything makes me emotional.
No,
so
and it's emotional. As I said,
I'm sitting here by tissues.
I know, tissues at the ready. As I said to you before, it's good to be emotional. These shows, and I think Teachers Talk Radio, I think, is a really authentic platform, and it is an emotional subject. It should be an emotional subject. So I know you were saying I've got my tissues ready.
I have my little pack here. I'm ready. But I'm fine. Just listen. I am fine. I will occasionally blub, and you'll hear it in my voice.
And we all, I'm sure everyone listening will appreciate that very much. So here we go. So just as I said, we'll give you a little break for a couple of minutes and play the ads.
Empowering education with Easy for You, where innovation meets accessibility. Our subscription-based offering not only equips schools with cutting-edge devices, but revolutionizes the learning experience by eliminating financial barriers, streamlining support, and embracing technology. We're not just providing tools, we're shaping a future where every student can thrive, unburdened by limitations. Easy for You, transforming education, one device at a time. Find out more at www.easyforyou.school.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Reading Solutions UK. Are you looking for best practices and innovative strategies to foster confident, lifelong readers? Join the free online International Reading Conference on the 11th, 12th and 13th of June. Hear from speakers like TV personality and education expert Basit Siddiqui, beloved children's author Michael Rosen, fluency expert Tim Rosinski, EEF specialist Chloe Butlin, the National Literacy Trust's Irene Picton, and a range of experienced practitioners, including MAT leaders, deputy heads, heads of English, high-level teaching assistants, and school librarians. Through the 3-day conference, speakers will explore a range of topics at the forefront of the current educational landscape, with sessions relevant for all educators and key stages. Visit Reading Solutions at readingsolutions.uk.co.uk for more information and to sign up for this free conference.
Hi teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculum. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps for good. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org.
So, if we can just get into it, the bit that that I really want to hear from you about, can you tell us about your experiences growing up?
Okay. Yes, this is going to be a toughie. Okay. If I start, one of the workshops I was asked to do, one of the first ones I was asked to do, I was asked to do a bit about being Black and British and what my school life was like, which was pretty horrid on the whole, in actual fact. But in my research, I came across a video. It was from the Channel 4 program called Take Your Knee Off My Neck. And I think it was made in 2020, I can't remember. But there are 5 short videos in that particular program. And one of them was called My First Time. And it was different Black adults recollecting the first time they knowingly experienced racial abuse. It's still available if anyone wants to look it up. And it helped me to remember my earliest experiences of racism, where it was being different, because I was only 5. So it was being different. That's what I understood from it. I think I blocked a lot of my earliest school experiences because I can't remember much at all. But certain things, like this particular thing, stayed with me. It was positive, and that's why I think this stayed with me. But what it was about hand holding. So back in the 60s, when everywhere you went holding hands with someone. I remember that I used to hold hands with the dinner lady a lot when we walked up to dinner. I think that was probably because I didn't have anyone else's hand to hold. And I know I had the other children didn't want to hold my hand. There weren't very many Black children in the school, I'm assuming, at that time. But I remember I got a hand-holding partner, a young girl. It was a white girl. She had long red hair in pigtails. I remember that well. And she had warts on her hand. So nobody wanted to hold her hand either. So both of us felt that we'd been sort of spurned by our peers, and we were hand-holding partners. And we would hold hands to do anything we need to do, walk up to the dinner and so forth. And that was the first time I realised that there was a problem with me. I hadn't really experienced racism. I assume, I don't know, because like I say, I don't remember much. And I think I blocked quite a bit. But later on, school life changed for me, and I started actually feeling part of the community when a particular teacher started at the school. And I think she must have been an NQT, newly qualified teacher, because her name was Miss Rowden. I remember that so well. I can actually see her. And that's the thing, this impacted so much because it changed my entire life. And I always think that teaching is such a profession where you can make or break a child.
Yes.
And I think she made it for me, and I will always remember her. There was one who broke it for me as well, and she didn't do anything dreadful, but I remember her, and I wish I didn't hate her, but I still remember it so negatively. It's amazing the power you can have as a teacher there. But Miss Rand, she joined the staff, and for some reason, she took me under her wing. I think she must have been there for a couple of years. As a student, I was well below average. Every end of year, we had a test. And out of 70-odd pupils, I was always something like 40-odd, 50-odd, So I was average or below in as far as they were concerned at that stage. And she, Miss Rowden, would praise me, and she'd praise my efforts. And that was the first time I had that. And I wanted to learn for her. And I grew in confidence just for the fact that, I would show her and she'd say, good effort. And I would get stars. But I never used to get stars. I had stars on my paperwork and so forth. I went from being 40 odd or 50 odd in the class to being second or third 2 consecutive years. And that, well, at the time it didn't register with me, why would it? But that's very telling.
Yes.
That's very telling. So obviously I wasn't happy. Didn't feel part of the community. I didn't learn. Those basic needs, Maslow comes to mind, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Those basic needs weren't being met. I didn't learn. But as a result of that, I realised that I was actually a reasonably intelligent individual. Who knew? I certainly didn't. But yeah, so that changed me. It's changed my life completely. And then she left. I was devastated when she left. But thankfully, I'd already got the confidence, so I didn't stop. I carried on because she taught me how to, which was amazing. I passed my 11 plus, but initially I was told that I hadn't passed and I was going to a local comprehensive, which pleased me. My sister was already there, and I was quite happy to be going to comprehensive. But my teacher told my parents to appeal because he said there was no way that I'd not passed my 11 plus. So anyway, they appealed and received a letter apologising, saying there'd been an error. And yes, I had passed my 11 plus and I had a place at the local girls' high school. My teacher at the junior school said to me that you could be top of the comprehensive or average in high school. Now, I wanted top of the comprehensive. My parents wanted high school. They said, you've got there, you've earned that place, you're going to high school. I understand why they said it, but it was horrible. I was bullied from the time I started until I became a prefect in year 11. I was the only black girl in the school most of that time. And the bullying, although I did report certain things, I guess that's what they would call racial gaslighting. Yeah. I don't think they meant anything by it. I think you're being oversensitive, things of that nature. So I didn't bother. But being in grammar school, it alienated me from other black girls as well. I have this accent. My parents always wanted us to speak beautifully. We were told off if we didn't speak beautifully. They said it's very important, so they're very strict about it. And then going to grammar school, one of the very few black people in grammar school, it meant that I was even further alienated, and I was considered to be stuck up. I tried desperately to show them I wasn't, but I was considered to be stuck up. So I even certain family members would call me. I was called Miss Lardida. So I didn't belong anywhere. I felt I didn't belong. The school didn't want me, or I didn't feel I belonged there. I didn't have many friends that were reliable friends. They were friends when it was safe to be, but who wants to be bullied, they would avoid me. And then outside of that, the other black girls, well, a lot of them thought that I was stuck up because, or wouldn't hang with me because I had this snooty accent and I went to grammar school. So yes, it was tough. I was very pleased when I left school. Very pleased.
Yeah, it's just my heart breaks for little Eileen, for young Eileen. I mean, so much in what you've said there. I mean, the hand holding, and just other children not wanting to hold your hand. But then the difference that, was it Miss Rowden?
Miss Rowden.
Miss Rowden. Yes. I mean, what you've said there about, just a teacher, just one teacher in that school caring about you, praising your efforts, the difference that made to you educationally and probably and your life and your confidence.
Absolutely.
And like you said, the power that teachers have. I think you said you can make a child or you can break a child.
Absolutely.
And obviously that you remember her so clearly and can still picture her.
I can still picture her.
The impact that it gave me goosebumps. You talking about Miss Rowden.
Yes.
But talk about the impact that just that sense of belonging that children need and how it can be done. And then this conflict then of what you did, and going to the comprehensive, which you wanted to do, but an error in whether you passed your 11 plus or not, and then going to high school, and then, like you said, then not fitting anywhere.
No.
So you didn't fit with your you didn't fit in at school, and you were horribly bullied. Again, those words that you use, that kind of you're being oversensitive. It's really heartbreaking because you knew you weren't. You weren't being oversensitive. You were being bullied for 5 years because of who you are.
It was tough. I mean, at the same time, it was sadly, there was an element of acceptance, which is awful, isn't it? But there was an element of acceptance. I guess I knew that's how it was going to be, and I just put up with it, which is horrible.
Yeah.
But I'm worried how many youngsters are doing the same thing now.
Yeah.
To have gone through all of that, and here we are, 50 odd years later, and it's the same.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
That's the thing.
And that's it. And I think that's why it's why I think right at the beginning I said it's just so important to hear people's experiences. I'm very aware of my privilege as a white woman. I am. But also, how can we really make any change without hearing people's experiences? And, there will be people listening that this resonates with. And I think, if there are other people and they hear the language that you're using and it's feeling familiar, perhaps they've been told that, I'm sure they didn't mean it like that. Well, actually, they did mean it like that. And unless we talk about these things, it's the same as a lot of things, isn't it? Unless we talk about them and hear about them and really think about, like I said, 5-year-old Eileen at school and nobody wanted to hold her hand. And that acceptance of that is so important. So thank you for sharing about your experiences growing up in school. And we're just, in a minute, we'll hear from you about your experiences as you left school. And again, really important that we do hear about that and listen about that.
Empowering education with Easy for You, where innovation meets accessibility. Our subscription-based offering not only equips schools with cutting-edge devices, but revolutionizes the learning experience by eliminating financial barriers, streamlining support, and embracing technology. We're not just providing tools, we're shaping a future where every student can thrive, unburdened by limitations. Easy for You, transforming education, one device at a time. Find out more at www.easyforyou.school.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Reading Solutions UK. Are you looking for best practices and innovative strategies to foster confident, lifelong readers? Join the free online International Reading Conference on the 11th, 12th and 13th of June. Hear from speakers like TV personality and education expert Basit Siddiqui, beloved children's author Michael Rosen, fluency expert Tim Rosinski, EEF specialist Chloe Butlin, the National Literacy Trust's Irene Picton, and a range of experienced practitioners, including MAT leaders, deputy heads, heads of English, high-level teaching assistants, and school librarians. Through the 3-day conference, speakers will explore a range of topics at the forefront of the current educational landscape, with sessions relevant for all educators and key stages. Visit Reading Solutions at readingsolutionsuk.co.uk for more information and to sign up for this free conference.
Hi teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculum. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps for good. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
The BBC features an article on teacher retention, with a piece leading with the headline, "Would a 1:40 p.m. Friday finish stop teachers quitting?" The article reports on troubling statistics which reveal that the number of empty teaching posts in England has more than doubled in the past 3 years, according to recent official figures. Whilst politicians have pointed to rising teacher numbers, some have acknowledged that government's figures also show that targets for recruiting teacher trainees have been missed for 9 out of the 10 previous years. This is despite raises to starting salaries. Teacher recruitment has featured in election campaigns, with Labour promising 6,500 more teachers and the Lib Dems also saying they would invest in more. Giving teachers an early finish on a Friday or a day off every other week have been amongst ideas schools themselves are considering. The article features comments from one former teacher who recently left the profession. She said in the report that leaving to protect her physical and mental health after experiencing anxiety had been the best decision she'd ever made, and that this was despite support being offered by her school. She was also overwhelmed by workload. Annual figures released by the Department for Education at the start of June cover the academic year 2023 to 24. They show that on top of rising vacancy rates, the proportion of state school teachers leaving the sector is at its highest since 2010, with 39,971 teachers leaving. This represents 8.8% of the workforce and does not include those who have retired or died. A report in May by the Education Select Committee said recruitment and retention was a persistent challenge. Early Friday finishes have been trialled by a school in London. Lessons begin at 9 a.m. and finish at 4 p.m. Monday to Thursday, so no learning time is lost. The head teacher said the response from staff and students was positive, and it had helped the school support well-being for all. Full details of the report can be found on the BBC News website. In Northern Ireland, the Belfast Telegraph reports on higher education. It says that students in Northern Ireland who are about to leave for higher education feel they have been left at a disadvantage when applying for university places in the Republic of Ireland. The Secondary Students' Union of Northern Ireland has raised concerns about what it calls double standards north of the border. This year, students in Northern Ireland are sitting A-levels with a full return to normality. No mitigations for COVID-19 in grade awarding. In contrast, the Leaving Certificate marking has not returned to normal since the pandemic. The union has called this unjust and said it disadvantages those in Northern Ireland competing for the same university places. SSUNI President Ellen Taylor said that structural barriers to Northern Irish students will deepen inequality, and that the Irish government and Northern Irish ministers needed to work together to ensure young people's futures. The Guardian reports on a survey of children in the UK and Ireland, which reveals that they are reading fewer books than they did last year. The 2024 What Kids Are Reading report surveyed more than 1.2 million pupils and showed a 4.4% decrease in the number of books read by pupils. According to the study, the decline in reading is particularly acute in secondary schools and affects the difficulty of books being read as well as the volume. The survey showed pupils read progressively more challenging books until year 6, but after that, the difficulty level tended to plateau until year 9, before a sharp drop in difficulty of books read by older secondary pupils. The research began in 2008, and this year is the first year there has been a decline in the numbers of books read, apart from during the first year of the pandemic. Explanations for the decline have included the drop in school attendance, with the number of pupils persistently absent increasing. Finally, the Washington Post features a story on Max the cat, who has been given an honorary doctorate from the Vermont State University. The 5-year-old tabby roams campus, socializes with students, and even attends lectures. He also has his own staff email address. Having attended the campus for 4 years, he has been awarded the doctorate in honor of his work. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
So I'm just slightly distracted by Max the cat having his own email address. So I'm like, what does he send? Anyway, oh gosh, yeah. So Eileen, we've heard from you about why you feel it's important to be talking about this. We've had your really powerful phrase about the paper cuts of racism. And we've heard about your experiences at school, and the power of teachers. Miss Rowden, who bless her, who really changed your school life and that sense of belonging. And then we've heard about how then you went to high school rather than the school that your sister was at, and you were then in this situation where you didn't feel that you belonged in either place. So home, and your, like you said, the other black girls thought that you were posh and snooty, and you were really bullied at school and not supported with that. So I think you finished by saying you were really glad to leave school.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yes. So can we hear about the next part?
Yes. Different. So I worked in the civil service or local government sort of most of my working life, and that sort of gives you a good idea of what things were like. In most of my jobs, there were few or no other black people. That was always the problem. In the earlier years, I used to get this sense of there being low expectations of me. My first job was actually with the Home Office, and I would hear about people moving on because they were offered a chance to apply for a position that I hadn't even heard about. So things like that occurred. So I think there were low expectations of me. I figured it was possibly because of my colour. I didn't know for sure. But after I'd been there for a while, I did sort of get an idea from people working in other civil service departments who are people of colour as well, that they felt much the same. So yeah, I think possibly there were low expectations, and I didn't hear about some of the things that I could have maybe applied for. So they assumed I wasn't ambitious. I always felt like I was doing more work than my colleagues just to get the recognition. I'm here, I'm a hard worker, look at me. My parents had warned us, me and my sisters, that we would need to work 10 times harder than our white peers in order to be recognised. I thought that was an exaggeration. I took it on board, but I thought, okay. But it did feel that way. I felt as if I was working harder or working even as well, but not getting recognised. So I needed to do more in order to progress. Sort of experiences I had, they almost seemed low key, but they were painful. Because of the sort of work I did with CPD, ongoing personal development, was important. So I was always doing training courses. When I was attending these courses for these various jobs, I'd attend a course and I'd sit at the table or in a row if it was theatre style. And I would sit there and I would see the other rows or the other tables filling up before mine. as often the only black person there. If there wasn't a black person there, they would make a beeline for we'd sit together. But yes, that happened a lot. And I found that difficult. And of course, once you're feeling rejected, you're feeling discriminated against. So I wasn't taking in the training courses. So I thought I've got to do something. So what I did was I started turning up. First of all, I started turning up earlier, but that didn't work for me either. So I decided, turning up later, but I wasn't brave enough to then join an established group.
Yeah.
So then I started coming early again, but I would put my coat down or my bag or whatever, and I wouldn't sit. And I wouldn't sit until the course was about to start, so that I was already on a table that was full and it was too late for them to move on. And in the earlies, that was the way I coped. Dreadful. I think about it now, it's just... But it was a habit I got into. And even though it wasn't necessary, I realised, and I didn't realise until I started thinking about the things I did, that I realised I still did it at that time when I was writing this particular workshop, when I was thinking about it. So that was after 2020, I was still doing it. I was going into a meeting. And one of my colleagues said to me, when I mentioned it on one of the workshops, she said, "Oh my God, Eileen, I've seen you do that."
I'm trying to think, actually, if I think I probably have seen you do it. Yeah.
It's now become an unconscious thing.
Yeah.
But I do that. I don't sit down. And I'm standing, chatting and socialising, and I'm not getting any sort of discriminatory response from people. But it's just a habit I've got into. It's a coping strategy.
Just so ingrained.
Exactly, very much so. So, and that's the sort of thing that I started doing to avoid having to deal with the racism. And that was, in the earlies, I would, but eventually I started thinking I can't always be fighting. And also it's the impact it has on you.
Yeah.
So I stopped. And I say that with an element of shame, but at the same time, it was self-preservation.
Yeah.
So I have to try and be kind to myself, but I do feel an element of shame when I say it, because I'm thinking you should have fought. But I mean, good grief, it's a tough battle.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you're doing it on your own.
Yeah.
So it's a tough battle. I was thinking of some other situations. I had situations where I'd be leading a project. And having to organise venues for a particular function or whatever. And I'd attend the function with my team. And despite the fact that I'm obviously the spokesperson, I would have somebody talking to the white member of the team instead of talking to me. And then I would then still answer. So, and I'd experienced that a good few times. And sometimes I would challenge to a certain extent. A couple of times, a colleague challenged for me. But it's difficult to carry on challenging all the time and still do your work properly. So again, element of shame at that. But last time that happened, which was it wasn't that long ago, it was not that long before Black Lives Matter, the UK one, 2020. And I did complain about it. I did speak to someone about it, and it was plagued. I said, I don't want you to go there and do anything about it on this occasion, but I want you to know. And at first there was an element of gaslighting, and I said, if I feel that way, then it was racism.
Yes.
If that's how it makes me feel, then that's what it is. I said, so and then that was accepted. And I sort of talked about that again afterwards once I had a platform for really trying to make a difference. But yes, it was, there's just little things like that. So as we're talking the paper cuts, aren't we?
Yes.
We're taking the paper cuts because you could easily ignore it and not know. I think the one that, when I was talking to my work colleagues about it, the one that really impacted people and got quite a few people quite tearful was Christmas dues. We went to Christmas functions, and we would go to places like hotels. We have dinner dance, and I would go, and I love my black sparkle,
Yes.
black crack and sparkle, and I told them that there have been occasions when I've been at these functions, and somebody would come up to me and say, "Oh, excuse me, can you tell me when they're starting the chocolate fountain?" Or excuse me, do you think you get me a cloth? We've had a spillage.
Yeah.
And there's me, what I'm thinking, my glorious black glitter,
Yeah.
you know. But I mean, often the staff wear black and white, but you know, so do all the people coming. Black is popular, and I would say I could easily let them know that they'd offended me by saying, "How dare you? Why would you assume that I was?" But I didn't. I'd say, "No, I can't. But I'm sure you could if you ask a member of staff."
Yeah.
And then they go, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. You know, so this is what they would call, you know, unconscious bias.
Yes.
But it was still offensive.
Yes.
But at the same time, looking after me, I wasn't going to say something, ruin my evening. I thought, no, I'll make you feel embarrassed and go off and avoid me like the plague. And I'll still feel okay about it and enjoy my evening. And I didn't share it with my colleagues. And they were devastated that had happened so many times when they were present.
Yeah.
And they hadn't noticed it and they hadn't picked up on it. So that did upset. And some of my good friends were really upset by that. And I said, they said, "Why didn't you say?" I said, "Because I wanted to have a good evening too."
Yes.
You know, but yes, it was things like that. And it's strange, the ones that hit hardest. But because that was like a social type event, it really hit hard with a lot of my work colleagues. And that's the one that presented the most tears. A lot of crying in 2020.
I think this, again, going back to why I just think it's so important to hear from people, is because what's really struck me in what you're saying is that you feel you need to be kind to yourself and forgive yourself for the decisions you made for challenge, not challenge, stay quiet, and all of those sort of things, and that you feel a sense of shame, and as the word you've used,
absolutely.
which is so heartbreaking, actually, that for all that you feel that you should have said things, but also those day-to-day decisions on, do I challenge, do I not? Well, no, because actually I just want to have a good night with my work friends and colleagues, and today is not a day to battle it. But these things are happening day on day on day. And I think linking back as well, I think it's something you said right at the beginning about when you started work and you felt that the expectations of you were very low. And that links right back to the research, I think, and what I was talking about right at the beginning, at the top of the show. The expectations are lower for Black students and pupils. And that almost you felt, well, you said, didn't you, that you worked so hard, but it was like, look at me, I'm a hard worker, you know, appreciate me too. Absolutely. I can do this. And you're already on a back foot. You're already on a sort of not in line for things that other people were. And I think,
and I guess I've been doing that since school days. I mean, when you think about it, I must have shown some aptitude when I was younger, yet it was missed.
Yes.
To go from being almost at the bottom of the class to being second or third.
Yeah.
You know, what did they miss? The expectations were not there.
Yeah.
It didn't. And that's the sad thing. If it wasn't for that teacher, I'd still be thinking, well, I'm doing as much as I can. And that's not a lot because the expectations weren't there. It's really, to be honest, the more I think about it, the more I get angry, I get upset and I get angry.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why I'm thinking, the more I say it, the less I feel angry, and the more I forgive myself for the fact that I didn't always challenge because I couldn't.
You couldn't.
There's that stereotype, the angry Black woman, and that was me. I mean, for many years, that was me. When I decided to stop was actually because my husband. We've been married 38 years now. He's white, and I remember being told by a chap I was dating, a Black fellow I was dating one time, "You'll never marry a Black fellow. You'll marry a white fellow. No Black fellow will put up with you." I remember him saying that. And I said, "Why did you say that?" He says, "Because you're a woman." But no, it was because you're a woman and you're too outspoken. Now, that I didn't believe. I thought that's that particular individual. But it did make me think to myself, is that how people look at me? You know, that I've got this voice, this way of talking. I've been told you want to be white. And I said, I am proud of being Black. Yeah. And they said, well, why do you work for the white man? And I said, I do a job. I said, I work for the government. I said, what are you saying? That I can't do a good job because I'm Black? I've got to do something. You know, it's that sort of attitude that really upset me. But as it turned out, I married a Black fellow because I fell in love with a Black fellow. You know, I married whoever I fell in love with. I was from relationships. And sometimes I thought to myself, oh, he was right, you know. And I was thinking, no, that's not it. No. I married the man I loved. And I dated a lot of Black fellows as well as white fellows, you know. But when I started dating my husband, we got a lot of rejection, a lot of animosity, and a lot of racism. The racism increased, and it was from both sides.
Yeah.
And I said to my husband was sort of like forever defensive, and I was thinking the relationship hasn't got a chance if we spend all our time defending it.
Yeah.
And that was part of my decision to not always challenge, pick my battles more carefully, because it was like we were forever doing battle. And there was plenty enough. We'd go away for weekends, and it's that thing that I used to think it happened in films, didn't happen in real life. There's a vacancy in the window. We'd go in together, and they'd say, "Oh, sorry, I meant to take it out. There's no vacancy." We'd drive around, come back, the vacancy's still in the window. And what we started doing, which again was a cop-out, but we thought, I don't like it, you can be blatantly racist to my face. My husband would go in, he'd book the ticket and say, "My wife's in the car," go out, bring in his wife, and we'd get to, "Oh, hello," smiley, smiley. And you wouldn't know whether they were just being putting it on or whether they genuinely aren't bothered. And I don't care. I don't want to know.
No.
I want to enjoy my weekend away with my hubby. Yeah. So it's that sort of thing. So we decided, okay, we're either going to challenge, and it's just fraught most of the time, or we're not going to know either way. So we just enjoy ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what we opted for. And it's sometimes, again, it feels like a bit of a cop-out sometimes, but at the same time,
I think it was your strategies. It's the same. The same as you said about going in and sitting down.
Yeah.
You've obviously have these strategies so embedded, and you two as a couple, as a mixed race couple, you came up with these strategies that just made your life a bit more tolerable and not fighting all the time, not challenging all the time.
Empowering education with Easy for You, where innovation meets accessibility. Our subscription-based offering not only equips schools with cutting-edge devices, but revolutionizes the learning experience by eliminating financial barriers, streamlining support, and embracing technology. We're not just providing tools, we're shaping a future where every student can thrive, unburdened by limitations. Easy for You, transforming education, one device at a time. Find out more at www.easyforyou.school.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Reading Solutions UK. Are you looking for best practices and innovative strategies to foster confident, lifelong readers? Join the free online International Reading Conference on the 11th, 12th and 13th of June. Hear from speakers like TV personality and education expert Basit Siddiqui, beloved children's author Michael Rosen, fluency expert Tim Rosinski, EEF specialist Chloe Butlin, the National Literacy Trust's Irene Picton, and a range of experienced practitioners, including MAT leaders, deputy heads, heads of English, high-level teaching assistants, and school librarians. Through the 3-day conference, speakers will explore a range of topics at the forefront of the current educational landscape, with sessions relevant for all educators and key stages. Visit Reading Solutions at readingsolutionsuk.co.uk for more information and to sign up for this free conference.
Hi teachers, we're Apps for Good, and we give schools like yours free introductory computing courses. Our courses are for everyone, including those who aren't computing teachers, and they're fully equipped with resources mapped to the UK computing curriculum. Independent learning is central to our courses. Your students will develop essential and digital skills by working in teams to create prototype apps for good. We'll even connect you with industry volunteers to give real-world feedback. Let's empower every young person you teach to shape their future with technology. Speak to us at www.appsforgood.org.
So, big question for the last few minutes. What do you think people can do? What do you think needs to happen?
Gosh, so much. More conversations like this, I think. I mean, they're happening, which is fantastic. But I think that needs to increase. There needs to be things like companies having somebody in to talk about what it's like to be a person of colour experiencing unconscious bias, if that's the wording that's going to get them through the door, on a daily basis. I think that needs to happen so people realise, because some people honestly don't think that things are that bad.
Yeah.
And I think that when they realise just what you're putting up with, they will feel differently. So we all need to be challenging racism. Black and white people need to be challenging. I think that's happening much more, which is absolutely amazing. There need to be more Black people in education. All children need to see Black people as educators, and Black children need to see people who look like them as role models in their schools. So yes, there need to be more Black people in education. How we do that? That's just me stating that. I don't know how you go about it, you know. But certainly that's something that I think is very much needed. It's like my daughter is the only Black teacher, I think, in infant school in this area, which it's not enough.
No.
Nothing like. Personally, I also think, and all of this is my personal opinion, of course, I can't speak on behalf of Black people generally, but personally, I think Black History Month should be changed.
Yeah.
I just hate the idea that it's about history, like Black, the difficulties are in the past, the problems are in the past. It should be. I think Black history, like we're talking about it, that being part of the curriculum, I think that should be part of the curriculum, and we should. So it should be all year round that we're looking at that. But we should be talking about maybe Black culture awareness or racism awareness.
Yeah.
So that we are actually just addressing that, because that is the reality of the current day. And Black history is important, very important, and I think that should be mandatory in the curriculum, like you were saying yourself. And I know that's something that's already been put out there. And I think that's why some students, even these days, I was talking to a student just recently, and it was as if he thought that racism was in the past. I did get his permission to say if I needed to, but we're having a conversation about Doctor Who, actually.
Yes.
Because the episode that ended with, I think the whole thing was fairly racist, but at the end there was some blatant racism, and he got very angry, and he came in and he said that was a dreadful episode. It was rubbish. He said it was really angry. I said, why? Is at the end it was such a racist ending, and the person was really blatant and racist, and it was dreadful. And I said, but that's the reality for Black people. And he was shocked. He was genuinely shocked. So we started talking about, he thought it was a major exaggeration.
Right.
So we were talking about unconscious bias and the fact that that's quite prevalent in the country, and I explained what it was, and I gave him a description that I'll share. It's in the local supermarket. Can I name a supermarket? Name a supermarket? Okay. Asda. Local Asda. I'd seen so there was two Black ladies in African outfits. I was looking at their outfits because I thought, wow, that fabric was gorgeous. And they were walking towards the exit, having done their shopping. And then there was three white people, like a mother, son, and dad, walking towards the exit as well. Big wide exit, automatic door opened. They stepped at the same time, and the alarm went off. And there was a lady sitting, as they do, sitting by the door, looking at people going through. And she stopped the two Black women. And the white group, they paused, but she didn't stop them, so they carried on. And these Black women, they were searched, had the receipt checked. They didn't respond. They looked, a little bit, oh, well, here we go again, sort of thing, that sort of attitude. I mean, I wasn't nearby, and I would like to have challenged, but at the same time, Black women didn't challenge. I thought, okay, but the lady that was at the door, I'd seen her several times in Asda. She's a lovely lady. I'd spoken to an information desk, and she's chatty and friendly. If I'd gone to her and said, why did you stop those black people? That was a racist act, or at least a unconscious bias act. She would have been devastated, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that was just exactly automatically what she did. And I explained to the student, that's unconscious bias. And he went, really? Does that really happen? I said, all the time. You look out for it. So yeah, it's interesting, and that's the sort of thing that we need to be stopping. We need to be looking at. But I was just so pleased that he was so angry.
Yes.
But he thought it was an exaggeration. And I'm thinking so many other people would think the same as him.
Yeah.
You know. So I'm also so impressed with a black Doctor Who. More of that. Thank you. Bridgerton, brilliant, wonderful, fantastic. People of any colour, any size. I just think that's it's okay. Some people say, but it's not true to a historical event. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? There's so many other elements that are not true to the historical events as well, but I don't think about those, especially the music. Here we are playing David Bowie. Of course, but it doesn't matter. So that sort of thing I think is wonderful. I was going to just say how this sort of things that I do.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think finally, we've talked, and I find it incredible. I think you're incredible. And I always love hearing you speak, because it is the kind of thing that people need to hear. No, let's not both cry. But how do you cope?
How do I cope? Well, the truth, I cry a lot. I do cry a lot, but I think that's good. There's nothing wrong with crying. And it's also, I cry a lot more now because I am speaking out more now. So I feel more supported and I feel able to speak out, which is good. But it breaks my heart that here we are, how many years later, we're still experiencing the same level of racism. So I still do I have my habits, my coping strategies. I always take a basket when I'm buying just even one item. So it's obvious that I plan to pay for it, because I used to always have the store detectives that I used to have before CCTV, store detective at the end of an aisle. So I'll carry on doing that so I feel safe. I opt for a ticket at the self-service, even when they say, do you want your receipt? Your receipt? I'll say, yes, please, because I'm not going to have anyone stopping me as I'm going out and saying, can you prove that you paid for this item? So all these things still happen. They still happen. So yes, I'm heartened, and I love to watch Bridgerton and feel, okay, colour is irrelevant. I love that. But I'm inspired by people, things like activists like Maya Angelou and Benjamin Zephaniah, both sadly deceased. And I is a Maya Angelou poem that's my go-to when I need strength, and that's Still I Rise. So yes. I've got a few lines. Can I say my last few lines?
Yeah, okay. Please do.
The bit that I tend to think about: you may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise.
It's just so beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful poem.
It is.
And I think for you to have those words, I suppose. Yeah. Eileen, it's been amazing.
Thank you.
It's been very special. It's been very powerful. Like I said, you're hugely inspirational, and I hope that lots of people will listen to this. And if you're listening live, there's been lots of people engaged today, which is just fantastic. But also, if you listen back afterwards and you want to message or comment or share experiences, I think, as Eileen has said, really powerful headline for the show, silence is consent. So we need to keep talking, and we need to try and change things with awareness and culturally. So thank you so much, Eileen.
Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.